you, James, last week. Anyone who listened last week when he completely side-railed my positive Pez. Oh yeah, we're going to lose.
Sat next to Lockett with the oxygen mask.
Tyler, get the fuck out of the way.
They have to overcome his speed, his height advantage, his reach advantage, his physicality. If they suddenly have to beat his timing out of his cutbacks and routes, they are toast.
Just bollering people out of the way.
Oh, yeah, it's
What a legend.
Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks and football fans everywhere, a very, very warm welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks Football Podcast. We Talk Seahawks Football Podcast. What the? That fucked me intro up already. We've just had off about a 20-minute showdown, and my head's already scrambled. I'm already knackered. We're all like giddy school kids who've just been asked to the prom, and it feels pretty good. We're all pretty running off those endorphins that they call them, I think. Adrenaline, whatever it is that's flowing through my body. It's not heroin or cocaine, I can assure you. It's all completely natural. 37-31. Little plug here for both myself and a fellow podcast, Roar the Lions UK. Went on there, Detroit Lions podcast, the UK podcast the other day. I did say we'd lose, but I did say the score would be 37-31. So I got it half right. So a little shout out there for myself, right? Absolutely nailed the score. No Pez before you ask. I didn't have money on it because I know what you're like. No, I didn't have a fiver on it. So I know I'm regretting that a little bit. But yeah. So I'm quite happy with myself this week. And I'm quite happy with my Seahawks. And I'm especially happy with a certain few players that we're going to get into tonight, both on offense and defense, as we always do. But before we get into it, Mr. Positive himself, he must be positive this week. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Good.
I was looking forward to this until you went on to the enemy's podcast and basically rimmed them off by going, "Oh yeah, you guys are going to win." That's the last time you ever go on a rival podcast, and no chance, no chance.
I didn't start licking ass. I just said, with backup offensive tackles, blah blah blah. I just said I wasn't very confident. That's all I said, and I got the score bang on. Didn't say they were going to blow us out.
It doesn't matter. If it was the Seahawks and the score was bang on, I would have been like, yeah, you should have told me beforehand, and I would have put it on. Do you know what? I'm so happy, though. Like, you, James, last week. Anyone who listened last week when he completely side-railed my positive Pez, oh, yeah, we're going to lose. Granted, do you know what? I won't dig in too bad. Yes, last week was a shit show. But when we're in the positive Pez section, as all our regular listeners know, it's our positive place. We could be 0-10 and we're still going to win. Like, it's just where we're at. And he has to come in with his negativity going, oh, the Lions, look at them. Oh, they're amazing. Then goes on the Lions Roar podcast. And he's like, oh, you guys are amazing. You've got to win. Oh, yeah. But you're tickling him as well for bloody Mike. Dick. But anyway, do you know what I love? I love more than this win. This win, it was so entertaining. It was great. The thing I love the most about this game is how many people wrote us off. Experts and their predictions. There was one guy who, I think it's the NFL Network, one guy said we'd win. Everyone else said we'd lose. All the fantasy podcasts, play all your Lions. The Lions are going to destroy them. Granted, some of them would, in fantasy terms, would have done quite well. Oh, yeah, the Seahawks, the shit. They're going to get wiped off the field and all that. Jamar Gibbs. Oh. Didn't really go that well, did it? How do you all feel? I'm in a predictor league with the Quick Snap guys. And I went on there this morning because I thought if Harry had put the Lions to win, I would have disowned him. But he's the only one who backed the Seahawks. The rest of them said the Lions were going to. Just had to go on there, didn't I? And go, you all feel pretty stupid this morning, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's me too.
Hello,
Mitch,
everyone.
how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good. I feel like the season began in week 2. I'm going to forget all about week 1. I really feel like that winning feeling's back that I thought we were going to get in week 1. Obviously, most Seahawks fans thought we were going to get that week 1, but it's back now. The league is back. The winning feeling's back. The offensive juggernaut that I thought we could be seemed to show signs that it is there, even if it was minus our 2 starting tackles. And all my positivity, which was sapped from me last week, seems to be coursing back through my veins. And I was hyped to get onto this pod. We're just over 24 hours after the start of that game, and I just wanted to get straight into this pod and get these feelings of joy out. So you're going to have to, listen to me being just gushing positivity about the Seahawks this week, I'm afraid.
Oh, I can't stand that. Deary me, I'm not looking forward to that at all. How will we cope? I'm gonna kick things off.
Okay.
Because where else are we going to start than Geno Smith? Because we always start with the offense on these podcasts. We always start with the main man, Geno Smith. 32 for 41, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I thought, you all right there, Pez?
Yeah, we're all
good. Just checking out, just make sure you're all right there. As you,
Cheers.
Cheers,
you
have something to say on that stat line. The only thing.
Perfect timing.
The only thing about Geno Smith's performance from the Lions for me was that stupid, boneheaded decision in the 4th quarter to sack himself, and that was a bit of the old Geno Smith coming back in as a little bit of a flashback. But other than that, I thought he was efficient. I thought the play calls on the offense was excellent. I thought he was reading the defense and taking what they gave them really well. Far better than last week. And I'm just. It's what we all know. We when he's on form, when he's not getting hit, this is what Geno Smith looks like. When we're protecting him, this is what Geno Smith can do. This is the level he's at. He's no joke anymore. Take this guy seriously, because if we can protect him, he's going to win us football games, and he's going to put up very good stat lines because he doesn't really turn the ball over. He throws a beautiful ball, and we've got so many weapons for him to pick his poison. We will win games, and we will carve up defenses. We've just got to keep protecting him. So I'll throw in the guys, because I'm on about protecting him as well. Geno Smith's success comes in tandem with the play of Stone Forsythe and Jake Curran from this week. Without Jake Curran and Stone Forsythe coming in and playing as well as they did, when I'll hold my hands up, I will freely admit I did not expect them to play as well as they did and hold up as well as they did, because no sacks allowed on Geno that against a decent Lions defensive front. I mean, what a tremendous job, and they've allowed Geno Smith and the offense to have the day that they've had. So I think talking about those three is a bit of a package in terms of the context of the game. So I'll start with you, Pez. Geno, Jake Curran, Stone Forsythe, as a collective, what did you make of that three?
Yeah, really impressed. When I was in the game, I completely forgot that them two were actually the tackles. Like, I was just like, I didn't even register it. And that's like how, because Geno he looked like himself again. Like you said last week, something my brother said before the season started. He made a point, like, he said he would have liked to see the starters play more in pre-season, because he always has this feeling like, with pre-season being shorter and training being more condensed because of health and safety, he says he feels like the teams who don't play the starters a lot normally struggle, and it takes him a couple of weeks going. And we saw that week 1, but then he looked like back to his old self. Like I said, he looked composed in the pocket, 2 very, very raw tackles, and he just was playing like the Geno we were expecting, what was really good to see. And I'd say, do you know, out of all the teams who struggled last week or lost, who didn't play their starters, I think we looked like the most improved team from week to week out of all them teams. Like the Chiefs looked like they were still just like trying to figure themselves out, like just struggled through that game. And really, we should have, in all after week 1, we should have got destroyed off them Lions. and it was partly down to just Geno getting back to last season's form. So I was very impressed. Yeah, I do have a stat. We're back.
Of course,
we're back. We've got the stat. So Geno Smith was 20 for 23 when targeting wide receivers, and he was 9 for 10 when targeting tight ends. That's backup offensive tackles, no run game, playing the Lions defense on the road. That tweet, what a screenshot, just sums up Geno Smith's performance. But I'd just like to say what I never got in at the start because I got a bit overexcited and ahead of myself was. On the predictions podcast, I did tell you both when you were both umming and ahhing because this game would be close. I had facts. We do not lose to the Lions. Pete Carroll does not lose to the Lions. I don't know what they've done to him or his family, but he just does. He turns into a different animal. Did you see him on the sideline? Actually some emotion out of the old fella. It was good to see.
On the grounding call when he was absolutely losing his shit. Yeah.
Yes.
Well done. And rightly so as well, by the way.
Probably put the oxygen mask on after it went.
Sat next to the locket with the oxygen mask.
Tyler, get the fuck out of the way.
Fucking hell.
But yeah, Geno's performance, very impressed.
Yeah, so like I say, Geno, I know PFF is not everything, but Geno gets a 79.8 grade, which was the highest of any Seahawk on offense. And as we talked about the two guys as well, Storm Forsyth got 70.4 and Evan Brown got 70.1. Forgive me, I don't know what Jake Curran's on, but it can't have been far behind that either. Storm Forsyth got a 75.2 grade in pass protection as well. So what did you make of those three, Geno and the backup offensive line? And also as well, when we think about it, Oluwatimi as well had to come in. That was such a banged up poor line that Geno had to work with. So what were your thoughts on Geno and the O-line protecting him?
It surprised me, I'll be honest. After last week, I thought I attributed, probably wrongly, our change of fortune in the Rams game to the two tackles going out. And maybe that was a fairly big factor, but after watching them last night, and like Pez said, one of the biggest compliments you can play to them is that at times you could forget that they were even out there, because if you're not hearing their name called for, yellow flags, and you're not hearing them called because they've been beaten by a pass rusher, then you're probably not going to hear their names at all. And we didn't. So in that respect, I think they've had really good games. Obviously, the grades back that up. They're clearly slightly better in pass pro than they are in the run game. I think setting the edge and allowing outside runs to mature is an area that they're not the strongest. But then that wasn't what we really asked for them for most of the game, was it? And for the most part, Geno had a clean pocket. There were some occasions, there was a few in the first half, where Geno made connections for 5 to 6 yards throwing out of a sack. There were a few times where I thought if he didn't, I'd have been happy for him to throw it away and not take the sack, but somehow he was getting the ball offloaded to tight ends and wide receivers and running backs and saving himself and getting a small gain. So I think that might flatter them very slightly in the respect that Geno had showed some really good footwork and some really quick release to make those plays. But it doesn't change the fact that they gave him enough time to make plays and we won the game without them really having a black mark on their name. You mentioned Oluwatimi as well. I think that's a really interesting point, because when he came into the game, it wasn't like we were ahead in the game and we were protecting it. We were fighting for a lead. And Geno was managing to march up the field and keep scoring. I think we responded to them going ahead 3 times, right? I think they went ahead. They had go ahead scores 3 times. So Oluwatimi was in the game while we were chasing it. It wasn't like he was just managing the game until the starting centre came back. He was actively part of us chasing the game. So I think that's a really solid experience for him as well. Solid experience for all three of them. And I think Geno can be pretty confident that the O-line depth is a bit better than we initially gave it credit for. And James.
Yes.
We got Jason Peters as well. We didn't have to wheel him out. We didn't have to wheel him out, did we? So
fucking physically wheel him out is what we'd have had to have done. Whenever he comes on, we're gonna have to physically wheel him out, deliver him on a cart. It's like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Storm Forsyth and Jake Kerr and any of the offensive line that have had to come in. They were all absolutely excellent. We know that, but someone needs their props for me, and he's not getting it in terms of the sort of headlines coming out of the game. The game plan to help those guys out was perfectly executed by Shane Waldron. The thing that made our offense click last season for me was the tight end inclusion and a lot of that 13 personnel. If it wasn't 13 personnel, we had 2 tight ends on the field minimum pretty much every offensive snap. We put our 2 best blockers out pretty much every offensive player that are out there. Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, and then Noah Fant comes in when they want to cut something up over the middle. But in terms of protection and blocking, the transition and the idea to rely on those tight ends heavily in that game, because you could see they were out there all the time. What did we say? I can remember saying it personally coming out of the Rams game. Where was Noah Fant? Where were the tight ends in that game when we needed something for the offense to start working? We clamoured for it on here, and then in this game when you got backup offensive tackles out there, a backup centre out there for some period of the game, what can we do to help them as much as we possibly can in pass blocking, in run blocking, whatever it is, in just protecting the quarterback? And it's by putting Dissly out there, Patterson out there, chip blocking, extra blockers out there. It was perfect to help take one-on-one pressure off Storm Forsyth, off Jake Kerr, and give them an extra bit of help out there. That extra little double team when we can get it. And you could see. So I don't want to. I'm not trying to take away and say that Jake Kerr and Storm Forsyth didn't play excellent or anything like that. They did. And the no sacks on Geno is largely down to their play and how well they held up as well. But that help and that game plan of putting those extra tight ends out there, helping them out, and not just making them go isolated one-on-one, I think was an absolutely excellent game plan. And then you had the sort of additional boost of tight end weapons outside of DK Metcalf and Lockett, Noah Fant, Parkinson, and Dissly were our 3 next best yardage receivers in that game. And outside of Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett, PFF wise, Noah Fant and Will Dissly were our next best offensive graded players. So that just shows you that the game plan worked for the tight end inclusion. So I thought that was an excellent little masterstroke from Shane Waldron to help those guys out that isn't maybe being spoken about as enough as it needs to be. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the tight end inclusion this week. Pez, I'll start with you.
Well, yeah, like it's the formula, isn't it? Like the start 9 for 10 to targeting tight ends all last year. We looked our best when Geno targeted the tight ends. When the tight ends were heavily involved in our game plan, we normally won. Like we looked amazing. We looked great. This is it. My biggest thing with that, listening to you, is does that not scare you, though, that, again, yes, we've won. Yay. But is that not just the trap of Pete Carroll? That's just the rod. You're a fishing man, James. The rod, the bait, bobbing along. I'm going to give him a nice, juicy one. This is the premium bait. I don't know fishing premium. This is my expensive shit.
Evidently.
Ooh, thank you. Next week, we've got him. Let's go back to how we did it before because I need to be involved. And then we scratching our heads against a team like the Panthers, like last year, like everything you just said. Where's the tight ends? They've disappeared off the face of the earth. Why are we struggling against the Panthers? We should be destroying them. Are we not just doing what we do every time we win? We fall into the trap. And then next week we're back on here. Not me, because I've not got any, but you two are tearing your hair out thinking, what the fuck was that?
We'll find out next week, won't we, Pez?
That's all I've really got. You beautifully articulated your point that I don't want to dumb it down, so I'll just say what I took away from that.
Mitch?
I really enjoyed our usage of the tight ends for all the reasons you said, James, for supporting the tackles with putting some extra big bodies out there, our best blocking bodies out there for a lot of plays, to really take the edge off the job that was expected of them. But I think when you look at a stat line that says 135 yards split between the three tight ends, that's outstanding for a team that has underutilized tight ends for as long as I can remember as a Seahawks fan. Granted, I think both of you have probably been Seahawks fans longer than me, actually, but that I've never seen consistent good use of tight ends in our schemes. And we all hoped that Waldron would bring that. And I think yesterday, like you said, James, the plan was to have the extra big bodies there to support the tackles. But once they started to become like ornaments, they were out there for that one purpose as those extra bodies. They really utilised them, and not just one of them. It wasn't just when Fant was on the field. It was, I think, the first one to take the big reception was Disley, wasn't it? And he was bowling through a couple and got a big first down. And it was a superb use of a really good tight end room that we have. No superstar in there, just three solid, reliable contributors that they schemed in and used really well yesterday. That was my take on that.
Yeah.
It's like you say that again, and you say like, what I made with like how you said like for a team that struggles to use a tight end, that is my biggest concern with it. It's like we've seen what we can be, and then are we just jumping back on the ride for the bloody roller coaster?
Well, the thing is, Pez, like each team in each franchise in the NFL will have things they do well, things they do regularly that become part of their identity as an NFL team. And there'll be things that they don't do as much. And as Seahawks fans, we know we're run first. We don't use tight ends that much, and we use deep threat wide receivers like on offense. That's if you described that. Yeah, if you described that, if you said name which NFL team runs first, uses deep threat wide receivers, and barely uses its tight ends, I think most NFL fans would get that within one or two guesses. It's just us. We can't be everything. We can't. Like we'll never draft a really talented wide tight end in the draft. We just never will, because we're never going to use them, and because we're never going to use them properly, they'll never want to pay them. They're not going to want to go.
I get everything you're saying, but again, you just kind of proving my point to the tight end usage works. So why do we seem to be one of the only teams in the league who believes that they could essentially, coming into season, we thought we were going to be a contender? Our tight end usage, when we use it, it works. We look effective. So why don't we just use that? I know the answer. It's like a rhetorical question. I just want to get it out there. Like you're just confirming everything. Why I'm just like, do I want to get back on the train of that works and that's really effective for us, and that should be the identity of our offense. But I'm not going to do that because I want to run the ball first. But if it was our identity, teams would scheme for it and it wouldn't be as effective. Sometimes you need to go into a game and think, okay, this is going to be a rough one. What can we do that they're going to have to adapt to that is not going to be in their game plan? Like James said, the tight ends were out there for possibly a different purpose. But while they're on the field, use them where you can, scheme something in. They did something there that the Lions probably weren't coming into that game thinking, we really need to think about what we're going to do with the Seahawks tight ends in this game. That was 100% not the conversation. Ken Walker would be the conversation. They'd maybe have a conversation about is this the week where they establish JSN? Is this going to be, are they going to try and establish the run game really heavy in the first half and then try and hit us with bombs over the top to Metcalf, who had a great game against them last year, Metcalf? So, I was just about to say, before you mentioned his name, I was going to transition into something, because you make a good point that I think the running backs, there's a bit more of a conversation, because like you said, they clearly, after what Ken did to them last year, schemed up for Kem, because he had his moments, but he struggled in this game. But Jesus Christ, did he just think, let's just stop Ken Walker and let DK just do what the frig he wanted all over the football field? Because he made up for last week, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
I'm just gonna go like, didn't drop a pass. Like, yeah, he was out, he had that injury, but he came back in and he was just an animal. Like, and do you know what I liked about it? Sometimes I always felt like Tyler was the chucking, like the dump, you know, get the little yards, and then DK was the big finisher. This game, this game, it felt to me like they just flipped script. DK was doing all the hard work, and Tyler reaped all the reward with the 2 touchdowns. It was nice to see, because it worked, and they had zero answers for him. Like, after last week when he cost us, and yeah, granted, we stunk, so we probably weren't going to win, but he might have just looked a little bit prettier than the score actually said. But with all his baby antics on the field and stuff like that, like, he made up for it in spades for me this game.
And I want to give a shout out to DK as well for that catch where he got sandwiched. It was actually the play where he got his ribs hit.
Yeah,
that catch was unreal, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
For a tall guy to be catching that off his shoelaces while sandwiched between two defensive backs, and he's reaching behind him while going to ground. Honestly, there are not many wide receivers in the league that would catch that ball. That was unbelievable.
No.
James, quick, I'm going to fire a little question to you here, because we've kind of evolved onto a different topic, and I'm just going to fire something to you here. Do you think Pete Carroll will have at some point gone to Geno Smith this week and Shane Waldron and said, let's get DK involved as often as possible in this game to try and re-establish, because he's fallen from grace in week 1 with a little bit with his behaviour and stuff. Do you think there'll have been some conversation without DK there to say, let's get him involved early and often, get him back up, get his confidence back up, and get him sort of re-established and get his ego pumped? Do you think there'll have been some kind of plan for that?
I absolutely think there will be. I think they'll be having that conversation every game, and if they're not, they're pretty stupid. A fully ramped up DK Metcalf, on fire DK Metcalf is about the hardest receiver other than a Tyreek Hill that you could hope to cover in the NFL. He's almost as quick as Tyreek Hill. He's twice the size, maybe even 3 times the size of Tyreek Hill, both in height and in stature. And when he's on it, when DK is on it, like he was against the Lions this week, he's so good. He is so good, and this is why we get so frustrated with DK, because we all see and know how talented he is. So I absolutely think that have been going into that game saying, if we can get DK established, because you're talking about sort of how the run game can set up for things over the top, and how the run game can tire defenses out. Fuck it. Having to tackle DK Metcalf, having to cover DK Metcalf tires DBs out like you wouldn't imagine. I imagine that's how it works. Anyway, if you're having to constantly cover DK, if he's having a hell of a game, he's constantly getting the football, you're constantly having to tackle a DK Metcalf because he's getting the ball that much. That must take something out of you as a secondary and as a defense in general as well. So I definitely think that have game planned to get DK heavily involved in this one, because it's just a mismatch.
Yeah, I'm going to add to this a little bit and add something in there. See if Pez has spotted the same thing and see what his take is. But I think it's the biggest. This is going to be controversial after week 1, but I think it might be the biggest improvement I've seen in DK Metcalf from one season to another, with the way he's getting in and out of his breaks. Have you noticed how sharp he is with his route running and his breaks and his comebacks? Like, he seems to be separating more than I've ever seen him separate. If you think about his touchdown in week 1, where he sent the wide receiver, he sent the corner for a hot dog and just walked into the end zone with as much time and space as you'll ever see without even touching him. He just sent him one way, walked the other, and it was like Jedi mind tricks, man. I've never seen anyone sell someone so hard with that. And some of the routes he ran with, like the little in cutting routes and comebacks for big rip-off plays, like big chunks he was ripping out of them. Lots of important first downs and plus 5-6 yards, plus 10 yards. He was sending people to different corners of the field with the routes he was running, and that was supposedly his weakness. He wasn't supposed to be able to run routes, like more nimble wide receivers. So have you noticed that as well, Pez? Have you noticed that he seems to be far more polished in his route running and his
yeah, I'd say yeah. And when you were talking, the thing that came to my mind with it is, I think it's more to do with, you saw it in this game with all his catches. All his catches were not, your typical. Well, I thought anyway, not just your typical DK style of catches. Like I said, he was like the dog work guy, almost a bit like you could imagine a Pete Carroll doghouse. Like you're going to do all the dog work, getting all the yards, and Tyler's going to be the one who's going to like reap all the rewards. Whereas instead of Tyler getting all the chuck and dump and stuff. But do you know what? What you were saying you saw it this week. Like you said, I saw it this week, and I just thought, do you know what it is? It's more like, I think it's more his arrogance. Do you know, because how he is as a person, he thinks he's better than everyone else. Like that's his mentality. He's always ready to scrap. He thinks he's bigger, harder, faster than everyone else on the field. But it's normally when he gets humbled, or when he does something stupid and he maybe has something to prove, that's when you see these type of things from DK. So like I look at it like, because he had a point to prove and his press conference was solely, I just can't wait to get back out there. And then it's like, that's what that is his talent level.
Yeah.
I think he's always had it in him to do it. Don't get me wrong, like you said, I think he is evolving as he gets older and mature. Like that might be a sign of him maturing. His attitude might not be maturing, but his play might be maturing.
Yeah.
Do you know like what I mean? If you know where I'm trying to get with it,
I do.
I think it's more all on. I think the DK Metcalf you get, it all depends on like his respect for the person on the opposite side, or if he i.e. last week did something stupid and feels like he has to prove himself. And hopefully, if with age and maturity, like with him maturing, he just naturally starts, leveling up in his play, then the end of this year, next year, like you're going to start hitting them Calvin Johnson comparisons where it's going to be second nature and he's just going to become a formidable object.
I think the thing that I mentioned that was the real standout for me was just how easily he was separating from people. And if you think about the way that our wide receiver room changed this offseason, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, because you've got Jake Bobo that's gone in there, and and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf both came out and said, I don't know how he does it. That separation, I don't know how he gets it, because they know he's not the quickest. They know he's not the most physical, but he's as good as anyone in that wide receiver room at getting space. And also, don't forget, you've thrown JSN in there, who's a rookie, and both of them and Geno Smith all came out and said his route running and how he gets out of his breaks is unbelievable. So DK, this established NFL star, has, I don't want to say he's been dished up humble pie with the recruitment, that the people that have come in, but I think he definitely could have looked at those two players and gone, there's room for me to improve my game, because these guys are year one players, and there's things in their game that are better than mine after 3 years. So I think there might be a certain amount of him looking on at those players that he's competing for snaps with, albeit not many, because Jake Bobo is not going to take many off DK Metcalf, but they're players that are going to share the game with him, doing things better than him. Maybe it's just a reality check that these are areas I can improve.
I think you've got a very good point there whilst you're talking then, because I did see a tweet. I didn't think much of it because it wasn't verified person. But during training camp, he by the sounds of it, he must have gone to training camps, and he said that DK was spending a lot of time with JSN.
Yeah.
Like they always seem to be paired together. Now, there could be, from what you were saying, there could be some comparisons there where you are right, like Jake Bobo's come in. Because the thing with DK is he comes across like an arrogant person, but I don't think he is as bad as what people actually be. Do you know, behind closed doors?
I think his on-the-field bravado is very different from his locker room bravado.
Oh, 100%. I think he is actually more humble than everyone gives him credit for. And it wouldn't surprise me. And do you know, then behind the screen, like no reporters training, he's actually working with a Jake Bobo and a thing, because he's, like you said, he's probably looked at Jake Bobo and gone, I am one of the fastest receivers in the NFL, but I get locked up quite easy off like a Jalen Ramsey. I put it in the Discord. DK is going to have a wet dream this week playing the Panthers because there's no JC Horn. JC Horn's locked him up every single time he's played. And the thing with DK is he has to do this to evolve. You made a good point, what I thought as well. He has to do it to evolve, because I heard something during the week that these DBs are getting just as fast as the wide receivers. The wide receivers, when DK first came in, that was like the end of a breed of DB where the wide receiver always had the speed on them. Now, then you look at Tariq Woolen coming in, you look at some of these other DBs coming in, and they can match for match. So DK, in a way, to still be talked about as an elite weapon, he has to not just go, I'm quick, I'm big, I'm going to bully you.
He needs another edge.
Yeah, do you know what? It's something. Do you know what? That's something I'm going to watch out for from now on, because you made a very valid point. With something I didn't really. I made a mental note watching him, thinking, I just feel like DK's all over the field more than he normally is this game. He's catching passes in areas I'm not used to DK. Like, do you know when he catches it? Because I'm watching on a tablet, and I'm like, who's that? Who's caught that? I'm like, is that DK? Why is he there?
When you get a sec, watch back. If you can find highlights of Metcalf's catches in that game. Don't just look at the separation he gets on his routes. Look at the timing of them for when the ball's thrown, because that is what JSN did so well in college. It wasn't necessarily that he was running the perfect route or he was running it really cleanly. It was the timing of his breaks out of it that just seemed to give him all the time in the world for the quarterback to throw in the ball. It's because he was timing them perfectly. If DK takes just a tiny little bit of that from JSN, he is formidable, because when DBs have to stop DK, they have to overcome his speed, his height advantage, his reach advantage, his physicality. If they suddenly have to beat his timing out of his cutbacks and routes, they are toast. Because if he's that much cleaner out of them, you've got to beat him with everything you have the entire game.
You make a very valid point as well, because do you know what that will probably do as well? It would slow him down a bit. And I think a fast DK Metcalf's probably a nightmare to slow down. But could you imagine just 80% speed, but with perfect timing and perfect route running? How much harder an absolute solid object? Well, I think that'll be worse, because the timing element will actually make up for the speed he's dropped off, and made him even harder to, like you basically just said. You made a very good point there. I didn't think that's where the pod was going to go with certain players, but it's an eye opener.
All right, it's a really interesting point. It's a really interesting discussion we've had there on DK. From, like I say, my 2 cents is, and I agree with absolutely everything you've both said there, is that if you were to probably meet DK, and if you ever watch anything with DK, and he comes across as the nicest, most humble, softly spoken, down to earth human being you'd probably ever meet. I just think sometimes when he gets onto the field, he tries to play up to his almost like a bit of an alter ego that he kind of has, this character that he plays with the pacifier in and the big guy, and DBs love to go at him because they know he's a shit talker, and he gets in his own head a little bit, and it feels like whenever he has a bad week or he lets himself down or whatever, the best DK you get is bounce back DK. And he never ever doesn't have a bad bounce back game. The only people that can stop DK is DK himself. So that's a solid point. That's my 2 cents on it. Go on, Pez.
From what you just said there, I think the thing from what you said there for me is it's what happens when a wide receiver is brought up by an O-lineman. You're a gentleman off the field, but when you get on that field,
game time,
you kill everyone in sight. Because that's what an O-lineman is. You don't find many O-linemen off the field who aren't humble. Jason Kelsey, he's probably the most televised O-lineman. He is a horrible man on that football field. Get him off the field. You wouldn't know him from Adam if he came over to UK and you didn't watch NFL. You wouldn't know he's just absolute, And I think that's what you get when an old lineman brings up an elite talent in a different position.
Fair point. Before we transition onto the defense, I'm going to read you nice 2 little juicy stats, and then we're going to get onto the defense. Geno Smith, these are both from ESPN Stats Info. Geno Smith's 5th game with at least 300 passing yards and a 70% completion rate since the start of 2022. That's only tied with Patrick Mahomes for the most in the NFL over that span. And then Tyler Lockett, 10th career game with multiple receiving touchdowns. The only other player in Seahawks history with double-digit games with multiple receiving touchdowns is Steve Largent, who is, of course, a Hall of Fame player. So 2 little nuggets there to end the offense on as we transition into the defense. And what we normally do on the defense is we start D-line and work our way back. I'm going to flip it on its head this week because I think the bigger and better talk. I know I'm going way off the box, way outside the box. But I think the bigger talking points this week are maybe in the defensive backfield and in the linebacker group than on the defensive line. So I'm going to start in the secondary, and do you know what? I'm going to read the stat lines out as well as I do the notable ones for the defense. Our tackles leader was Julian Love at safety with 10 total tackles and 3 assisted, so 13 overall. Tre Brown, 1 sack, 1 interception, and Draymond Jones also got himself a sack in that game as well. Obviously, second in tackles was Bobby Wagner, no surprise there, and then Jordan Brooks behind him. So I'm going to start with a guy who had the most tackles on the team, 10 and 3 assisted, Julian Love. Because I've seen some mixed opinions on Julian Love coming out of the Lions game, that he wasn't very good. Some people think he is good. When we signed him, I cast my mind back onto this podcast that I think we were all very happy. I was very happy that we'd signed Julian Love. Obviously, it came with a caveat that it meant Ryan Neal was replaced, and we all love Ryan Neal. And obviously, Julian Love cost about $5 million more. I'll have to go back and watch as much of the games I possibly can to form myself a better opinion on how Julian Love played. In my opinion, from what I can remember, none of the big chunk players that we gave up were down to Julian Love, other than where I can't remember who it was for the Lions, but it was right at our goal line. And I put it in our Discord at the time, and I was quite annoyed with it. But he had a chance to wrap up. It might have been the tight end or something. And he hit him from behind, and he leaned with his shoulder pad. He went in with his shoulder pad instead of wrapping up from behind. And if he had just wrapped up with his 2 arms, just proper tackling technique, as we preach so many times on this podcast, then that would have been stopped for 15 yards, sort of less than what it needed to have been. That was my only gripe that I had from Julian Love. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you've listened to Tre Brown's press conference after the game, another guy that we're going to get onto. But Tre Brown's press conference from immediately after the game, he said that Julian Love put him in that exact position for that interception, that pick 6. He said before that play was called, he told him that to look out for exactly what happened and put him in that position, basically.
I saw it was condensed formation. They like the 26 is their scat back guy. There's running a lot of Texas routes. That's where they got the angle route, in-breaking route. So my safety had put me in a really good call, smash, cover 2 basically. And so all those guys went in. The only person I had was the running back to my side, so I knew I was able to squeeze that. And I chased that route, and then I looked up. Next thing I know, the ball was in my hands, and then I just ran to the races. It was Julian. Julian made that communication call.
So maybe a bit of an insight into Julian Love's IQ and reading the offense and reading the situation there as well. So that was my 2 pence on him. I'll open the floor up to you both in terms of whoever you want to speak about. It doesn't have to be just Julian Love, because there's loads of talking points in here. If you want to talk about Julian Love, fine. If you've got nothing on Julian Love, if you want to go a little Tre Brown first, I'm happy with that as well. Pez, do you want to go?
I'm going to I don't know. I'm gonna take a guess that I reckon Mitch would have some good talking points on Tre Brown. So I'd leave him. I want to talk about Spoon.
Yeah.
Rookie watch.
We could drop a little bit. We could
do
tease
a
a little bit.
little teaser. Yeah.
Right. I'll keep it very, very tame because I'm not going to go as analytical as Mitch is probably got. That's mine.
Oh, I've got pages of notes on my phone ready.
I'm just going off memory. Mitch will have like an A5 spread, like all ready to go with gameplays and everything. So I'm not going to ruin anything for Rookie Watch. All I'm simply going to say is I wanted to speak about him because I made the point that he concerns me a lot. He's not had a preseason, and the over expectation, especially that was before week 1, especially after week 1, the unnecessary expectation that poor lad's going to have on his shoulders to be the saviour of this team was just unjust. He got done by the flea flicker? Yeah, the flea flicker. He got done by that a few times, but the thing is, it's nothing we've not seen in training. Like from when JSN bent him backwards, like he got done on a few things, but overall, from eye test, not from anything else. That's how I like to roll. Is I like him a lot.
Yeah,
I like him a lot for a kid who has missed preseason. It's going to take him a couple of games to get going. But do you know what's beautiful about our schedule? I will call it right now, James, for the first time this season. He will be a massive, massive factor in why we beat the Bengals after the bye. Because he's going to have his struggles in these next couple of games. He's then, like he did this game, he's probably going to fuck up some shit. He's going to get into that bye week, have some real-time game under his belt. He's going to have time to process it. He's going to have time to think, digest. And I think he's the type of kid who, for stepping on the football field straight away and actually standing out, I think by the end of the season, he's just going to be dominant to the point where he's going to start controlling. I don't think they're going to give him a choice. I think he's just going to start taking over that secondary. Him and Jamal Adams, I've been saying it in the Discord. I've been saying it to my brother when we spoke about it. Him and Jamal Adams can transition this whole defense into a different animal. Jamal Adams comes back and he can stay healthy. Them two together are going to turn everyone into a different animal on that field. They're all going to get more aggressive. They're all going to start getting a lot faster and shit's going to go down. I am adamant on that. So that's all I've got to say about him, but he impressed me a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the term for what you're saying there really is being like a tone setter. I think when you see him making those like the PDs he had a PD on a 4th down play, which was so beautiful. Good. He read it so well. He was in so quick and so sharp. Made that play. Just when you watch him, he really is a tone setter. He's full of juice. And like you mentioned Adams there. Adams is another guy who flies around, throws his body into stuff, and just does things at such a speed and so much power that you don't give some players a chance to play. And he's so good.
It's going to be so good.
The thing I was going to say earlier is when you draft a corner with the 5th pick, right? You're picking a guy based on his traits of making big plays, being a huge factor in your secondary. You don't pick a guy with a 5th pick and tell him to play cautiously. You tell him to go out there, trust his instinct, and you put him in a position to make plays, force fumbles, punch the ball out, take interceptions, put yourself in positions to do big things that sway a game. If you start telling him to be soft in coverage and just try and get some PDs here and there, you might as well draft a guy in the 3rd round. To use your 5th round, use your fifth pick on a defensive lineman or an edge rusher or a wide receiver, because those guys will make plays for you doing the normal thing. You pick a cornerback there, you pick him based off the fact that he's going to change games and make big plays. If you tell Spoon, you probably shouldn't have come up to set the edge there, you should have stuck with your man. Nah, you put him in a position to make plays and you give him free license because that justifies your pick.
Yeah, obviously, Devon Witherspoon, there's so much to talk about him. We're going to do another rookie watch this week. So if you want an extended sort of look at our rookies and an extended sort of breakdown and sort of analysis of Witherspoon's performance from week 2, then definitely tune into our rookie watch this week, where we're going to go even further into it and have a very interesting discussion, I'm sure, because I've got some things on Devon Witherspoon as well that I want to bring up in that pod. But I'm going to segue into another cornerback, a guy who wasn't probably expecting to be on the field at all. Tariq Woolen goes down, and then this little lad, this little gem, comes onto the field and in some ways contributes massively to us winning the game, maybe wins us the game in some respects. Tre Brown, I mean, let's just rave on him for a couple of minutes, because you know what, the lad's deserved it. He's had to wait and wait, setback after setback with his injuries, and he's come in such a massive game for us in a massive situation. He could have very easily have been, sort of exposed and targeted heavily by the Lions there, but he stood up, showed them that he's a very decent little cornerback in his own right. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 passes deflected, and of course that pick 6, which I believe is his first pick 6 in his entire career. What can we say about Tre Brown? I mean, I know he got beat on the touchdown in the 4th quarter, in the end zone. Other than that, there was, and that's just nitpicking really, because it was a hard route to cover really for him. So that's just nitpicking. I was so happy for Tre Brown. Any thoughts on him?
Oh, you just look at his stat line, and he had like the complete game, didn't he? He had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit, 2 passes defense, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. That is what everyone got excited for when we drafted him. And you've got to also believe then that he can, in my opinion, he can only get better. Like he's still probably getting his feet, he's getting his confidence with his injury. Like, fully letting himself loose. We heard Quandre talk about it, was it last season, where towards the back end of the season was only when he truly felt comfortable on his ankle. And it's like, I'm guessing it happens with all injuries to them DBs. And if that's what we're getting now, like you said, he gave up that touchdown, really frustrating, bit of the Jekyll and Hyde, of him. But yeah, for me overall, I thought he just had a complete game. He was everywhere. He did a bit of everything he needed to do. Brilliant.
Yeah. The thing is with Tre Brown is that nickname that he's mentioned there, Big Play Tre, at the end of the game, was a college nickname. But like you said, James, it was his first interception. So he's called Big Play Tre for the reason that he makes big plays in games, right? That's obvious. But the big plays he made in this game with the interception, that's not his game. So that for me shows progression and evolution of a player. He's obviously feeling like he's got more of a role to play this year. He got so many snaps in pre-season, and he was a starter in pre-season. And he had as many good games as he had bad games. Granted, it was a bit of an up and down, but he had big moments in those games. Even in his worst games, he had big moments. Thing is with Tre Brown as well, coming out of college, his calling card was run defense and hitting people really hard, a bit like Spoon, but he didn't have the fully rounded game that Spoon has in terms of making plays in the air as well as in run defense. So Tre Brown did things in this game that are not his calling card. Big Play Tre, sure, but this was more than Big Play Tre. This is Big Play Tre plus, because he was doing things that he's never done in this game. And that for me just shows a guy who's growing in confidence, who's really rising up the ranks in a very talented DB room, and that's great to see.
When you were talking then, I was like, that's not his calling card. I was like, is he happy with him or not?
No, I am. The thing is with Tre Brown, he's adding things to his game that aren't what he's known for. That's always a great thing. Like, if for instance, if Reek Wooden started getting sacks, I'd be like, it's not what it's calling card, but I'm happy it's happening. It's like he's clearly adding more to his game. Maybe it's just the fact that he feels like he belongs at the NFL level. I think sometimes when guys are drafted and they get injured early, they still it goes a long time before they answer that question, am I an NFL level player, or can I make it in this league? He's starting to feel like he belongs in the NFL. And he's becoming a very established and important part of a very talented DB for me.
I'm going to segue into these guys. This guy, particularly Bobby Wagner, and the run defense as a whole. The over these first 2 weeks, and especially last night as well. That is why you bring back Bobby Wagner. Again, like I said, forget the sort of the niceties about bringing him back and satisfying the fan base, all of that. He is unbelievable in the run game. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, 17 yards rushing. And Montgomery had about 60 something. So good. He's so good. And he's proven that he's nowhere near over the hill yet, in my opinion. And Brooks as well. Jordan Brooks again probably isn't 100%, but he was so good as well. Go on, Pez. I know I've mentioned that name that just triggers you into a gittish little kid. Go on.
Do you know what? I said it last week, and you hit the nail on the head with them two. This linebacking group misses KJ Wright. I've always seen it. I could be completely wrong, but in my memory of following this team when they drafted them, KJ's always been the pass defending guy, and Bobby's always been the run guy. Don't get me wrong, young Bobby used to be all right in the pass defense, but as he evolved, he's just elite in run defending, and KJ just helped him, that tandem, because he was good in pass defending. The issue is you've got two, in my opinion, the tackle numbers speak for themselves, two elite run defending essentially middle linebackers together, and no pass defensive guy. Devin Bush has shown that he has potential to be able to do it, but them two together, they're just a fucking formidable force. Like Jordan Brooks to come back, he looked sharper this week than he did last week, and that's astounding. That's amazing. He's not lost any of his speed. Like they're starting to shoot him through the gap, and that's just what you need to do with Jordan Brooks. Like I loved him when we drafted him because I watched his college tape when he was at Texas Tech and he was middle linebacker. And the things he did really well was know where the ball was, go and attack. That's just what he's elite at doing. That's why he's a first rounder, in my opinion. He was that guy because that's what his elite traits. Pass defense, I don't know that deep into his college, but clearly it isn't a strong suit of his. And that's what in that linebacking group as a whole, that's really what they should have done, was find a linebacker who's really good at pass defense, and he might be shite in the run, but it doesn't matter because you've got two guys who, when it's all said and done, if they stay healthy, they will be 1 and 2 in this league at tackling. The way them two are going, they're double digits every single week. No one can slow them down. Phenomenal. For him to come back from his injury as quick as he's done and to basically look like he's not lost a step in speed, I thought he would have lost his speed and he would have been pretty much washed, but he just looked like he's just picked up where he's left off.
If they could find that sort of third linebacker to say, right, we'll play Brooks and Wagner, and then instead of Bush, just have a really good pass coverage linebacker, and then you can run your 3-4 however you want to run it. Then I think that's what they can do going forward. I'd like them to do. Mitch, any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought his coverage. He probably got quite good coverage grades. This I haven't got his PFF grade for coverage to hand, but he was involved slightly more in coverage in this game and did quite well, I thought. But like Pez says, it's not his forte. I've pulled up a little stat here for you, Pez. I knew it was ridiculous. I remembered it being ridiculous. But how many tackles for a loss do you think, off the top of your head, Jordan Brooks had in his final year at college? Because it is a nutty stat. I remembered it being crazy when we drafted him and being excited about it for this reason, but I've just looked at it and it's made me smile because it's stupid.
I remember talking about it when we drafted him and I was bullish on it. Tackles for loss, isn't it something like 15 plus or something?
Yeah, it was 20 in one season. He had 32 in college and 20 in his final year with 3 sacks, 108 tackles. Nuts.
Because it was because they changed him to middle linebacker because the coaching staff wanted him to be in the middle. They gave him the captain for his senior year. They wanted him in the middle of the field because they were getting gashed up. And he took it and he was a heat-seeking missile. But honestly, I argue with everyone. Like, I love that kid. Like, I love how he plays, everything. We have not used him correctly. Every time you send him or you go seek and destroy, he pretty much 99 times out of 10 will seek and destroy.
Yeah, well, his stats as well. Like, he had 6 passes defensed in college. None of them were in that last year when they moved into middle linebacker. They put him in a position to play to his strengths.
Yeah, but also, I remember him talking about it when we drafted him. He basically did what they wanted him to. He went out of a pass coverage type of thing with the pass defenses and stuff where he actually wasn't that bad. And if anything, that's why it probably slowed his development down because Texas Tech wanted him to play run defense. And that's why he is.
He's a specialist.
What anyone says, he's an elite run defender.
Yeah,
he is an elite run defender.
I mean, if I told you he had a season where he had 2 interceptions and 3 passes defensed, you wouldn't tell me that was Jordan Brooks. It doesn't sound anything like him. But he's got that in his locker, and maybe they did see him as that Swiss Army knife to play alongside Bobby Wagner, and eventually succeed him in the middle and be more of a specialist. Maybe that was the plan, but it hasn't panned out that way, and I do see that as something we need in the draft. There are a number of seriously good prospects in the draft, projected around second round, third round, who are fantastic middle linebackers with very, very good coverage specialities. Cedric Gray is the one that we'll come to when we get to the pre-draft process, who I'm extremely high on. I think we could get a great addition.
Who's he play for?
North Carolina.
I'll keep an eye on him.
North Carolina, Cedric Gray, superb player.
Johnny
anyway,
Hall of Fame.
Shut up, you.
But yeah, keep an eye out for Cedric Gray. I think he's the answer to our prayers in the linebacker department. Anyway, we were talking about Jordan Brooks in the game. I've not given my take on it, but I think like I did say that I thought he was better in coverage. He obviously shot the gaps brilliantly well. Like Pez said, he looked extremely athletic. And I was worried a little bit for Jordan Brooks because it was a contract year and he was recovering and coming back, and I felt like it was the worst possible timing for him to try and put in the season of his career when he was returning from an extremely serious injury. But actually, I think the way he came back, that resilience he showed to do that, the diligence he put in, the diligence with his recovery process, and to hit the ground running in the way he has, he's put himself in a fantastic opportunity, or a fantastic position to negotiate an extension with us, because he can say, yeah, I got hurt one season. This is how I've come back. I hit the ground running, and you're seeing the best version of Jordan Brooks coming off an injury. I've got years to go, and I'm only getting better. It could have been limping through the year, trying his best, hurting himself, not looking himself like a shadow of his previous seasons, and what we're actually getting is a player that's really impressing all of us in every facet possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's proven his fitness now. He's proven that he's not lost a step, and like I said, I think they'll do as long as it continues. I think they'll definitely extend him further at the end of this season. We're going to finish up with the D-line. I don't have anything much to say on the D-line personally, other than Darrell Taylor has won my play of the year already in week 2. I have not stopped laughing at that Darryl Taylor sack on Jared Goff that isn't a sack, which should still be ruled a sack because it was so brilliant when he obviously thought he still had the ball and he just fucking lit him up.
Clicked then.
Just poor Jared Goff just stood there, just. Oh, it's a nice day. Just taking the sack to the stadium. You know what I mean?
It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst. Roughing the passer situations you'll ever see, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fined for it. But I don't think there's any maliciousness in it. I think he genuinely believes he's still got the ball, and he's absolutely railed him, and it's fantastic to see. But it's also awful that he hasn't clocked it.
It was. He
bought everything about that fake.
Oh, he did. It was prime Waterboy is what it was. It just reminded me of Waterboy and just Adam Sandler just fucking pinning his ears back and going for the quarterback. It was, like you say, because he thought Jared Goff still had the ball and he thought he was doing something. It's just what makes it even funnier to me. Yeah, he just thought he'd really done something.
The only thing he didn't do, James, was celebrate it like a sack. That would have been even better. If he got up, pumping his chest like he just sacked him, and that's actually a penalty.
Oh, I love Darryl Taylor with all my heart. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, the D line for me. I know Mitch is going to talk about him in the rookie watch, and he mentioned him in the Discord during the game. But it's something I said to my brother. Cameron Young for me. I just thought when we eventually get him on that field, there's just I look at him and I get this this feeling about him that when he eventually gets on that field and gets playing football, he's going to destroy people. He just looks like a man who, when he puts his helmet on, he looks angry before a helmet. When he puts a helmet on, I just think he probably his strength goes up by 10 points on Madden, and he just goes and starts mauling people to death because, he had a tackle for loss this game, didn't he? But he just, I just think he's going to be a monster. But on a quick side note from the D line, and then I'll let Mitch say his pieces, was before we forgot didn't mention it. Jarrett Reed's special teams play on that punt.
And Jake Bobo's as well in the opposite corner where he caught the ball at the 8. That's a guy who supposedly isn't quick, by the way.
I was meant to talk about Jake Bobo whilst you mentioned him. Did any of you see what he did for one of Charbonnet's runs? He came in and he was lead block. He looked like Waterboy. I swear he was flailing his arms at one point when he ran into that pile, and he was just mollering people out of the way.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah.
What a legend! What a guy! I need to stay on this team any which way I possibly can. I've never heard of a fucking run-blocking wide receiver like him.
He's a very committed player, isn't he? Oh, Jake Bobo, love it.
He's a monster. I love him. But sorry. Back to the D-line, Mitch. What are your thoughts?
D-line, I was pleased to see Draymond Jones get a sack. I think there was a lot of hype about what he could be in this system, but at the moment, I don't think the system really knows what it is. He's been sold the fact that he's playing 3-tech defensive end rather than a traditional sort of 5 or 5-eye on the edge, and so far we're not really playing a 3-man front. So I think everything that he's been told he's doing just hasn't really, or everything we were told they would be doing hasn't really happened. It may well be the case they're telling us one thing and they're scheming up something else. But it was nice to see him make an impact like that and get on the box score with a sack. You mentioned Cameron Young as well. When we were in the pre-draft process, I said that I thought we'd draft Cameron Young based off the fact that we'd interviewed him twice. I think one was possibly Pro Bowl and then an interview. And the reason I think that we really liked him was, one, the round we'd be able to get him, and two, what an a rough diamond he was, in the respect that I think I told you before in pre-draft. I'd have to listen to what I said exactly, but I would have said something like his get-off's really quick. He has a habit for getting penetration, but doesn't have the closing speed to turn up on, like I say, on the box score with sacks and tackles for losses, because he doesn't close very well. He threatens to, he crushes the pocket, and that tends to allow other people to feast, because you end up having to double team him to stop him disrupting the line, and then other people find room that they didn't find before. What we actually saw in this game was closing speed, penetration, and then closing speed, and then also wrapping up and getting a tackle for a loss. So that again for me shows huge promise, because he's doing things that he never managed to do in college. So that really excites me.
When you put in our Discord about you thought he was having a good game, literally I was like, oh, I forgot he was playing, because I wanted to see how he was doing. And you said that, I was like, oh, decent. I'll have to go back and pay more attention to him. And literally, just as I read your message, there's a run play, and
he was all over
running back. The running back pulled to the left. He did get wrapped up, but literally the second man to the ball was Cameron Young. I was like, shit, that guy's got some speed on him when he gets going. I wouldn't like to get bulldozed by him.
It's a similar thing to Jake Bobo, actually, where actual physical quickness doesn't relate to just being twitchy and like quickness and speed aren't the same thing, right? You can be very twitchy and quick and quick off the snap without actually being fast. And sometimes that split second of jump that you have becomes a key weapon for you, and that's always been his thing. And also getting off his blocks really well. So, and you saw that, like you say, in that run stop where he's beaten his guy and he's got off his block and then made a play. That's fantastic for him. That's really, really promising. And it frees up if he starts to command starting snaps at nose. Our defensive line becomes fresher, because Jaron Reed then enters the defensive end rotation rather than being the starting nose, and the whole defensive line becomes fresher and more rotated, and we're also better protected from injuries. So Cameron Young getting himself established was a real good thing for us this week.
It was a real good thing for us this week. There was so many really good things for us this week. I hope that we've touched on as many of them as we possibly can in the time frame that we've got. Like you said, for a more sort of in-depth look at our rookies, please do head over to our Rookie Watch episode that will be out this week as well. We do weekly ones that Mitch hosts. It's his forte. We go well in depth into our rookies every week, our rookie performers. So if we want to talk about more about JSN, Devin Witherspoon, Cameron Young, all these guys who are showing up this week, and second-year players as well, then that's your place to be. That's your place to be, so don't miss it. But as always, a massive thank you for all of you who tune in to us for our main pod. I hope you're feeling as good as we are. I don't want to forebode a false dawn or anything like that, but it feels like maybe, just maybe, our season is finally kick-started after that abysmal week one performance. We've got that winning feeling back, and now we've got Carolina at home, which is the Super Bowl reunion week.
We're going to destroy the Panthers next week with all them lot there.
Well,
there's going to be juice. There's just quick positive Pez, JSN. That's all I'm going to say.
Is this his breakout game? Is it just a raised eye? I'll take that as a yes. And
any betting people who listen, the brace or the hat trick. Maybe put a quid on it.
Okay, no.
I think we'll see JSN take 8 receptions for about 70 to 80 yards, and possibly a touchdown in that game. I think they'll scheme him in. They'll really
had a vision.
I really think they'll try and establish him in the slot, and then they'll hit the deep ball in that game. I'm certain.
Cam Walker 2. Charbonnet is going to get his first touchdown. Red zone, 5 yards out. He's just going to bulldoze in. Geno might give him a tap on the bum to help him over the line. Charbonnet's first touchdown. Here we come.
Lucky boy. I hope so, Pez, and you'll be sure to hear about me championing him and cheering him to the hills when he does do that on this podcast. You know how I feel about that boy. But as always, a massive thank you for listening. Tune in to us whenever you can, whenever we release new pods. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you get your social medias, we'll be on there. Just search We Talk Seahawks, as well as our Discord. Like I say, where we have a lot of fun, a lot of different servers on there, and some interesting game day discussions and non-game day discussions alike. And I'm sure it's going to get even more interesting as the weeks go. There's going to be even more talking points as we find out more about what this Seahawks team in 2023 is going to look like. But for now, it is a big old Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.